Welcome, everybody. And it's exciting for me because, not only because you're here, which is exciting, but there's so many friends in the audience and people who've been doing this work for a long time and are committed to it. It's exciting to see a gathering like this. We really should do this every year, Mark. I think let's make a note of that. Do this every year. Well, thank you for coming, and what we wanted to do is take a little bit of time to ask you questions, and I gave you a little bit of a heads up already, but questions that we struggle with a lot here as well. I mean, I think you have people who are already committed to the idea of social business and social ventures, and as I was just sitting at our table and going around the table, the number of us who say, oh yes, I run a social business. Sometimes it's organized as a nonprofit, sometimes as a for-profit. But we struggle really with this question of poverty. So I wanted to start by asking you a question. If eliminating poverty requires investment in social, institutional, and physical infrastructure, what's the role of government as opposed to private investors in addressing the issue of poverty? Because a long time here we've thought, well, it's not just private investors themselves. There's an important role for government. What is it? How does it fit?
I'll answer. First, I have to make an announcement about the edible cups. It's still going on. I just heard, as we are having lunch, Gary told me that he has already found out that edible cup, so he will be presenting it in the market by December, I guess.
That's
is that
right.
it? Yeah.
Is that right?
So I have been talking about for the last 5 years. Now I find somebody who found it. And he's also in the Danone network, so they will be very happy that finally it has been found here in Stony Hill. So that's a good starting point for this discussion. Things keep moving. Coming back to your question, the point I was making there about the bonsai tree, it's not the fault of the person. Most of the government things always located at the person. How do I get the person out? I'm okay, he's the problem. So that's the wrong attitude. You have to change, then everything changes. I said it's not because something wrong with the seed, something wrong with the container in which you are trying to grow it. So you have to change that structure which surrounds him. And that's what I said, institutions are wrong, policies are wrong, structures are wrong. So you have to start there. Instead of just saying that, okay, if you give him good education, he'll be all right. No, he won't be all right. What do you do with your good education? If your bank doesn't give you money, if your structure doesn't move in the direction which will help you, because they're so busy making money that they don't have any time to pay attention to you. So that's a bigger picture that I've said. And then what does government do? Government try to break that flower pot and make it a real soil for everybody. That's a challenge for the government. How do you structure it in a way nobody is now limited to whatever little island each one is staying on, so that it becomes a full water body that we all can grow together. So that's a basic thing.
Well, let me just interrupt for a second. And I mean, I'm not very good at analogies, so I heard what you just said, but I'm not sure I understand fully. I mean, the flower pots and things like that. But can you give us 2 or 3 examples of what you think, when you say that government should be doing to support the social business sector, or really more the idea of eliminating poverty?
To make it more concrete, what I was again telling in the presentation, that today there is a law for banking which creates bank for the rich. There is no law which legislated which should be creating bank for the poor.
And what would that law look like? What would it say?
We have all the details, how we function, how we do that. Why the conventional bank cannot lend money to the poor people? What is their problem?
Well,
because the law doesn't allow them.
Right.
At every step you'll see law. That's why, not that they're bad people.
Well, the law says you can't make risky investments, so
sure.
what do we say?
Every language that they have says this is not the guy, the other guy is the right guy. Because the whole assumption was you'll be lending money to them. That's how the law has been framed. if the law for the Bank of the Poor is made, he said, forget about your collateral. That will not lead them to here. That will be number one. Find a way which will allow you to do this. Why all these MFIs are working here? You have all these instances, we discussed that, Microfinance and so on, right here in New Hampshire. They're all NGOs.
Right.
Why didn't they become banks? Because the law doesn't allow them.
Right.
Otherwise, if they could become bank, they wouldn't have to go around raising money from anybody. They will be just business, take deposits and lend money. Grameen Bank doesn't take any money from anybody.
Right.
Doesn't go on asking government to give the money or World Bank to give the money or anybody else to give the money. They have plenty of money themselves. When I said to the young people that your mother has unlimited money, I really mean it, because that's not a restriction.
But as you know, many countries, I'm not sure about Bangladesh, but many countries have developed special laws for MFIs that recognize you're going to be lending to poor people. They aren't going to have collateral. They do have different sets of rules.
It's not a banking law. It's only allowing you to be MFI, registering you as an MFI. In all those laws, they are not allowed to take deposits.
Well,
so you are tying down their hands and say, now you swim.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that there should be a special law that would allow
just an instance. You said, what is it that needs that? Right. This is it. This is one such a restriction that you put. Open that up. Is a kind of one of the many changes that you have to make in the legislative. This is government job. That's why I'm saying the law is not for me or for you. It's the government, the legislature has to get involved with that.
You had mentioned some very impressive statistics about the reduction in poverty in Bangladesh over the last 10 years. Is government responsible for any of that?
Well, if you go around, everybody will claim that this is because of them. Government will say this is because of us,
right?
Naturally. But the way we have been discussing for many, many years in Bangladesh, government is an obstacle rather than an assistance. So everything that you want to do, somehow government stops you doing that. So that's not a good image of a government. Right. Your bureaucracies, your corruptions, your everything, slowing people down. One of my earlier book is about, the title is Remove the Hurdles in front of the people, let people move. That's the title. Because everywhere you go, government has a kind of barricade built there. Mm-hmm. You can't move. So that's the situation. But even within that, government has been, because of probably its inefficiency, they would like to put more hurdles, but because of inefficiency, they couldn't put enough hurdle. So people still move on.
Mm-hmm. Right. Is it just about reducing barriers? I mean, if President Obama called you
No, I'm referring to Bangladesh. I'm not talking here. So don't get me into this situation now.
Well, I know that you've been endlessly hassled by your own government as well. So why not
so you
make
know
it
that where I'm
multiple
coming
governments
from.
as well? Right. Although it would be helpful in terms of affirmative. As you know, in the United States, the federal government does invest directly in these community development financial institutions, and I know that it's made a big difference.
Sure, I'm not saying that. Government, if they want to play a very positive role, they have enormous power to do that. But unfortunately, country like Bangladesh and others, they are not using that power to do good things for people. Mm-hmm. And again, for example, local government is a very important thing. Mm-hmm. You have layers and layers of local government, which allows you to express yourself and so on. We don't have that. We have local bodies, we have local governments, but the central government doesn't allow them to function because they want to control everything. Uh-huh. So that's another failure of that. In general, what I talk about the government for everybody, I said government should be, first of all, its role is a kind of cheerleader, encouraging everybody to do good things and creating that environment so that people can do good things rather than asking government to do everything. Government will do by default, because if people are not doing it, then government will do it, because others are not doing it. Today, people don't do it because government is supposed to do it. And globally, the idea is It's the responsibility of the government to take care of the poor people. So how do they take care of the poor people? They give welfare. I said, that's not a solution. You're only frozen the problem rather than solve the problem. What did you do? I was in Glasgow because of our interaction with the Glasgow Caledonian University, which has been very close to us. One of the things they came up with the problem, like we had the discussion in the university, is about their people, young people in Glasgow city who are on 4th generation unemployment. I was shocked in the beginning, what is 4th generation unemployment? Meaning that for 4 generations, nobody in those families had ever seen any employment. I said, how can this happen? Said, because they are on welfare. I said, is this what the welfare does to people? He said, yes. Soon they will be probably moving to the 5th generation.
You mentioned local government. Is local government also an impediment?
In Bangladesh situation, see, it's very difficult to discuss that because you are not in that context. I mentioned that they are not allowed to function. So probably if they were allowed to function, there will be impediment. We don't know. But now our sole responsibility of the impediment goes to the federal government. So it's a harsh thing to say, but it's a general direction of that. It's very difficult to undo those kind of things. It's not particular government. It's in general the nature of the government has become kind of controlling government. It's still a kind of colonial mode to it rather than people's government to help people to do things on their own.
So you believe, at least in your country, that in spite of government,
that's the kind of word popularly people use.
Yes, exactly. Enhancing.
That's how people generally use. In spite of the government, Bangladesh has done well.
Let me switch topics for just a second. You touched on it briefly this morning, but I know that you've given a lot more thought to this, and I think it would be helpful here. We're in a university setting, and so one of the things we encourage people to do is to look carefully at information, to analyze data, and to use that information to make good decisions, to improve policy, to do better work. And one of the things that you said, one of the questions, and you're familiar with the literature as well or better than I am, saying it's mixed on microcredit and microfinance. Some that says, yes, it's done a lot of good. Others that said, well, when we look at a comparison group, not much difference. And earlier this morning, you were asked the question, how do you know this is working? And you said, well, when I look at the borrowers, if people use their eyes. So I think eyes is one test, but I know that you yourself have gone beyond eyes. And particularly at a place like a university, we would want to know what other evidence too. Yeah. It's interesting to me that you were also one of the pioneers in this concept of a progress out of poverty index. So I know you measure more than just looking into someone's eyes. Can you tell us briefly about why you also believe that collecting data is good and what it has told you about your own borrowers?
Yeah. Again, to correct the interpretation of what I said when you measure all those things and say that conclusion that it's not have done anything good, I said it's because you don't have the eyes to see it. It's not my eye. You don't have the eyes to see it because your eyes are biased eyes, eyes that created to see something else. You brought those eyes to see something. We are not trained to see those things. So meaning your methodology is the wrong methodology you're applying to do that. So that's why you don't see that. If borrowers said we are happier than before, if you did this before, if the methodology don't see it, should I blame the people who have experienced this, or should I blame the methodology who couldn't see it? So I say blame the methodology. People are right. For example, in Grameen Bank, we lend out $1.5 billion every year, and it keeps growing. This money comes in the hands of the poor woman. What does she do? She or her family does something because she has to pay it back with interest and come back again to take more loan. So just to run this $1.5 billion in all over Bangladesh, this flow out and flow in touches people's life. You cannot just do it as if nothing happened. They are still the same way. They kind of became slave of the system. Somehow they make money and slave to pay back the money. Unless they're happy with it, they will not do that, number one. And number two, one of the things that we did is to put money in the savings account.
And last night I was mentioning they have nearly $1 billion in savings. If nothing happened, they have $1 billion in their hand. At least the bank has helped them. It's their money. Suppose it is no contribution of the bank, but they provided an avenue so that collectively they have $1 billion in their hand. Mm-hmm. They have their pension fund. They know that old age they don't have to worry. This is provided by the Grameen Bank. So that didn't exist before. And we have 10 indicators of seeing how people move in, how people do that. So 10 indicators are something like this. First of all, when we enter people, we want to make sure they're absolutely poor. And absolutely poor means she lives in a single room house, leaky roof, no furniture inside the house, etc., etc. So now your indicator says, does she have a solid roof over her head? Out of the 10 indicators, say, okay, he said, now it's a solid head roof. Okay. Does she have furniture in the house? Yes, she has. Another one. Does she has enough savings in the bank so that she can cope with emergencies? So that level is fixed as 5,000 taka. If she has enough 5,000 taka, she has enough money to handle her emergencies and so on. So that's another one. Does she have access to water? Yes, she has access to water because she got a tubewell loan and she has sunk a tubewell. They have that. Does she have enough clothes for winter? Because poor people are all open to winter. Our winter is not as severe as New Hampshire, but temperature drops down to 6 degrees Celsius. So in 6 degrees Celsius, when everything is open, you're sleeping with your child and yourself, and many people die during winter because they have no warm clothing. So one of the conditions, do they have warm clothing for them? So yes, warm. Do the children go to school? Yes, they go to the school. So if you have fulfilled all these 10 conditions and we say this family has moved from poverty to non-poverty, right. That's all. So if you have fulfilled that, this is good way to judge because you are not sending some questionnaire to somebody.
Someone goes and looks.
Absolutely, said here is a tubewell, here is a roof,
right.
Here is the furniture, you touch it, feel it, that's it. Right. That indicates that she has done something.
So these are important measures.
Absolutely,
these are
that's what I'm saying. When other people come and say, oh, nothing happened, I said, they don't have eyes to say. What can I do?
Well, you can show them the piece of paper that has all the check marks on it.
No, I don't have to show the check mark. I said, why don't you take this list and go, you do your check mark, right. And then find out that maybe they are biased check mark. This is the genuine check mark. That makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So we only have a couple minutes left. I want to make sure we get to the question of what can a great university do also? I mean, this is a question, and we have a great audience, and my president is sitting right here, and my colleagues are all around. So if there were a university that were really committed to promoting the issues of social business and seeing it really incorporated into the fabric, particularly we're a public university, so we have an obligation to the people of our state as well. What could we do that would be really interesting? What should we be doing?
One of the things in an academic environment, university has a great role to play, that's for sure. One of the things I feel that the university should do every year, they should go through with their students a kind of a exercise. What kind of world that I would like to see? So every year they do that. Yes, I would like to see the world that I imagine will have this, will have this, will have that. And every year go back and check.
This is what we ask the students.
You ask the students. Students will make it. You don't even put any input whatsoever, because again you'll get their minds in the wrong direction. Because one of the complaints I make about the university, I should share with you because I'm here. I said, people come with bright eyes and beautiful sights and so on. They go through academic circles, academic exercises with the universities. They come out as a mini professor, the professor who taught him or taught her. He starts thinking like his professor because he admires him, or he was so good that he pushed in all his ideas packed into his mind. Poor guy lost his mind, lost his eyesight. He's no longer the same person that we sent to. With that freshness of his mind, creative part of his mind is all gone. That's why we say he's a product of such and such a school. Why should anybody be product of any school? I'm product of myself. I decide what I want to do. I'm just taking inputs from everybody. When you say he belongs to such a school of thought, he's ruined, finished. It's completely destroyed. So this is one that So students should come up and say, this is the kind of world we would like to have, and debate among themselves whether this is the right thing to do, right? Because here we are not doing anything of that sort in the entire education system. All we are saying, work hard, get this through, and perform well in the exam so that you get the best job in the best company, as if that is life. That's a shame. Why should why should my life be dedicated to work in the best company, in the best job? I'm a person, I have a role to play. So what is it that I want to do with myself? I think that is the most important exercise in any educational institution. As a human being, what is your role? What do you think you should do? These are peripheral things. This is for livelihood issues. Mm-hmm. Livelihood issues is not for human beings, it's for the animals. They worry about livelihood. What am I going to get my food? In a human being, food is all guaranteed because this is part of my life. I see what my role is. What kind of thing that I would like to see, what kind of world I would like to create. And that's what we are, here we don't talk about creating a world. We are so busy fitting into the world that we are in. And that's what slows down everything. Mm-hmm. So if we had created those ideas, imaginations, things will start happening. Because if you imagine, as I was mentioning, if you imagine, even if you don't do anything, it will happen. Because you imagine. But if you don't imagine, no chance.
Right. I'm sitting here smiling because one of the great shocks to me, we do evaluations of our teachers every year, and after the class ends, we read them, and usually that's when I read my evaluations, I say, oh, good, people like the class. And then this past year, after many, I got one that said, this was you were the worst teacher I ever had by far. This is an incredible waste of time. And I was thinking, why, this is terrible. And I turned the page, and it said, because you didn't tell us enough. You made us teach ourselves and do your work for us. And I thought, well, wasn't so bad after all, actually.
I hope not.
Well, Professor Yunus, I know you have a plane to catch now. We really appreciate your being here the last couple of days. You're an incredible inspiration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I didn't want to upset you. That's the way I feel. Thank you.